today is Mr. Kannan Gopinathan. Kannan is an icon of integrity, ability, and smile, IAS. We see him across India inspiring the people. What makes him different is his approach and attitude. Facing challenges with a bright smile. That could be the best way to present Mr. Kannan Gopinathan. When we wanted to name this program, we found it very complex to frame words for that. Some people are immeasurable. Attempting to measure them is like measuring an ocean in a cup. Hence, we decided not to attempt for that. Instead, we are making it a large-scale interactive session. We have identified 4 areas to introspect on. One is youth and employment. The second one, freedom and dignity. Third, peace and prosperity. And the fourth one is rural integration. I request Sir Kannan Gopinathan to comment on our selection and propose your suggestion to begin with our conversation.
Yeah, hi, Alfonso. Thank you for having me on the show and on the interactive program. I'm perfectly fine with all the 4 subjects. I think they are relevant and it'll be a good discussion, good interaction. So please go ahead so that we can start with the conversation.
Yes, sir. We are extremely happy to have you with us today. We have some of your friends talking about you. We would like you to see them and respond spontaneously as our conversation progresses. You have shown extraordinary abilities and superior qualities in your performance, even from your school days. The upbringing that you have got from your parents must be very extraordinary. Can you tell us something about your parents and family?
I am the only child in the family. My mother and father. My father was Mr. Gopinathan Nair, and he was a UDC with the Revenue Department in Kerala. And he passed away 7 years back. So now my mother is there. She has always been a housemaker, but she was the one who has always pushed me to study and how education can be in the way for an upward mobility. And especially father, one thing is very clear, that he was quite clear that no matter what, you should stand up against injustice, irrespective of the consequences. And we have had to face a lot of consequences because of that also. But that is fine. I think that is, once you take a step, you are aware of what the consequences are, and so your steps are not out of ignorance. Your step is despite knowing the consequences, because you know that your conscience, or that you have to go by what you believe in, is much more important than the consequences that might follow. So more often than not, at the time of decision itself, you are prepared for the consequences.
Really happy to hear about your lessons and your advices, sir. So before we go ahead, let's see one of your friends speaking right now.
Hi, I'm Roy George, and I have known former IAS officer Kannan Gopinathan since 1998. We were classmates at Technical Higher Secondary School, Pudupalli. Kannan was that type of student who wanted to excel in anything and everything he did, and would not rest until he actually did. He had that thirst for knowledge, and when he had topped the Technical Secondary board, he made us all very happy and proud. At that time, we knew that he was destined for greater things. Even if it's normal things like studies, or more serious things like alterations at the playground, with his friends and other government school students using a shared playground. You could count on Kannan to be with them until the very end. I remember this one particular incident a few of our classmates had with the private buses, the buses they use for commuting to and from school. The bus operators were not allowing them to board. Now, this was because of the concessional rates they had to give the students. Kannan led the protest against the discrimination. Kannan has always kept a clear head, has a strong heart, and has a broad mindset. I am proud of what he has achieved and will always support his activities.
Oh man. Okay. I didn't know that there was a segment like this.
Oh, okay.
Nobody told me also, but it's very, very nice to see Roy here. Yeah, it's been very long, and it's very nice of him to say those things. Yeah, we were quite a very what do you call? Yeah, we used to stand together. I think a lot of us were there, and we used to stand together and say, no, we'll not let it happen. Certain things will not let it happen. People can't bully us. We had an issue with bullying, so we can't let bullying go on forever. And especially when in a school where you don't have an organized, or a student union, or any that kind of a thing, it's usually left to individuals to stand up. And when few individuals stand together, I think that's enough to stop such bullying. But very nice to see him here, and also very nice to hear him say those things.
Okay, now we have yet another friend of yours going to speak, and then after that we'll start with our conversation.
Okay.
Machana, so I was being asked to share some memories from our school days. Okay, so we were kind of high school friends. We got on from 8th standard. Karan is kind of a very bright, studious student who never wants to get through the books for a long time to grasp something. So he is kind of very curious, who asks a lot of questions to the tutors, and very enthusiastic. So he never mind to give a deep dive to the things, to make the things clear. And towards friends, like, he is kind of very jovial, and he just gets love with people very very soon. So he always have a huge friend circle. He's a person who's very clear from that time itself what he does, and what is his stand on things, basically, because he have he used to have a very deeper knowledge in whatever he says and does. So recently I met him like a week before. After that's almost like 17 years. So I hardly find any changes in him. He's almost like the same enthusiastic, vibrant, happy soul with a lot of positivity. So I always wish him the best for whatever he does. And as I said, like, the things he does and the stance he's he's always confident in that. So I am proud of him, we are proud of him, and whatever you do, whatever you do, or wherever you go, always success follows him. All the best, Vachana. Thank you.
Yeah, that's again. Yeah, we were quite. There are a lot of stories. Actually, they didn't share a lot of stories. Actually, maybe some other day. Me, Joseph, we all had to go together to a police station after an altercation, and yeah, so we have a lot of shared histories. Yeah, but very nice of you to do this. I don't think they will ever say those good things to my face, but since it is to somebody else, they, they are saying. Yeah, but thank you. And thanks to Joseph, thanks to Roy.
Now, as we progress our conversation, Global TV would like to express our gratitude to Professor Dr. Umman Mamun for being instrumental in bringing this program to a success, and at the same time having such a premium guest with us today. We are really blessed. So getting on to the conversation, I will go ahead with the first question, sir. Our country is facing challenges one after the other. Can you set some priorities for us to address these challenges?
First and foremost is to bring our house together, as to bring the people together. There is a huge trust deficit that is existing between the people and the government. And on the other hand, government is trying to further a trust deficit between people themselves, create a division sort of so that there is a trust deficit within the society itself. And also there is a huge and widening trust deficit between the government and the people. Even though it's a very recent mandate, the difference between, or the divergence of views between the people who didn't support or who didn't vote this government, that's around 60% of the population, and the people who voted, or the government, not even the people who voted for, and the government, is actually widening. And it is going to an extent where those forces might pull us apart and prevent us from coming together. I think that is something for the first thing for anybody. I think not only, I won't say it is only the government's job to do it, it's for all of us to do it. And seeing each other as kind of an enemy for difference of opinion or for disagreements. It started with very innocuous name calling, like a Bhakt or a Sanghi or a, or the other side like a jihadi or Atangwadi or, rise back converts or, for every disagreement you found a term which will demean the person. So that you don't have to confront with the views. If you discredit, if you demean the person, then you don't have to confront with the disagreement. The subject or the topic of discussion is no more a concern. You can simply say some bad words about the other person and then leave it. He's not to be even given any importance to. This started off like that, and then it went on with everybody. If it is an educated city dwelling person who is opposing the government, he became an urban Naxal. If there is a student, he became a Tukda gang, or it suddenly became your. So if you say against the government, oh, you are a part of urban Naxal, or you are a part of a Tukda gang. If it is a Muslim who is saying something, then it suddenly become a jihadi or Atangwadi or stuff like that. If you're a Christian who is standing up, then it'll be like, okay, you had anyway sold your soul for 100 rupees or a bag of rice or something like that. And these kind of insinuation for standing up or disagreeing with the government's view, when the government and its machinery starts attacking individuals, right? We are individuals in this country. Government, be it of anybody, is supposed to serve all of us. Is there installed so that all of us are taken care of. All of us are kept together, and as a nation we move forward. But instead, when we start creating this gulf of division between people, that is going to be very difficult for us to heal in a short period. And that is my biggest worry. Rest of the challenges will definitely, once we are together, if we are able to overcome this thing, that we have a shared future as a nation, as citizens of this country, despite all our disagreements, despite all this childish name calling that we do each other, we have to be conscious of this fact that we have a shared future as Indians. We will all go up, go high, go better, develop together, or will all go down together. And if we consider each other as enemies, right, then we have real enemies. It's not the case that there are many other countries who would want India to fail. And not for anything because they hate India or anything, but that's how geopolitics is, because there is a limited space and people are vying for that space. And at least as a country, we need to stand together because we also need a bigger share in that pie. Of course, the pie has to get bigger, but we also need a bigger share in that pie. So we should learn to understand that disagreements are not because we hate each other. Disagreements are precisely because we are different individuals. I and you will have different views on so many issues. Many a times it might be hurtful to you. Many a times then I should be sensitive enough to say, not to say it, or even if to say, to understand why it is hurtful to you. Many a times it might be the case that we might think that we all agree on so many things, and we find out that that's not the case. We don't agree on certain things. Irrespective of all that, our difference of disagreements are all because we are different individuals. We are two, a husband and wife cannot agree on majority of the things, and it's a country of 1.3 billion. We cannot agree on a lot of things. That doesn't mean we become enemies. That doesn't mean we purposefully hurt each other. That doesn't mean we start to hate each other. We should understand it's a disagreement. Yes, move on. Let as a countryman, as fellow countrymen, let's move on and see how can we make the country better. And in turn, when the country gets better, it is better for us also. So this is my biggest concern, and I think that is where the government, I've been particularly harsh and critical of this government, because instead of trying to heal, the government has only added further and further fuel to this division. It has actively encouraged its cadre to go after individuals who stand up and who say anything against the government. Discredit the individuals, because to silence somebody, you don't have to put a tape on his mouth or her mouth. You have to just discredit him. Once you discredit the person, that voice is as good as useless. He or she can keep shouting. It doesn't matter. Nobody would bother what she or he is saying. So this is a tactic which has been used against our own people, our own countrymen. And that is where, without realizing, with having a very short-sighted, very foolish, very short-sighted kind of a vision, the government, so that they can win the next election, which is coming the next state. And since every 6 months there is or 3-4 months there is an election, wherein this continuous hatred-inducing cycle, so that somehow keep your cadre together, keep And for them to, for the cadre to keep together, they need somebody to fight with and create that people to fight with forever, so that this cadre always remains together and they would vote for this government no matter what their performance is. So that those communications are not for the rest of the country. This is precisely for those people who support this government, so that they are fueled by it and they remain together and with the government for year after year or elections after the elections, without realizing what this is causing us to us as a country. And we, that's the first priority. First and foremost, the country has to come together. And this is not now, I've been telling it maybe even before my resignation. Our economy will come together when the country thinks it is safe. And if you're happy, you will spend. If you're anxious, you will not spend. If you're nervous, you will not spend. Look at your family itself. If you're unhappy for whatever reason, you will not spend. You will not go and buy a house, or you will not, when you are not sure about your position in a family as a, like the family is going to be together or not, you're not going to invest in a house. You're not going to invest in a new TV or a car or anything. You would instead try to save, because you are always trying to prepare for a bad time, and that is what had happened to Indian economy also for some time now, because we have stopped, because we are not confident of the future anymore. We are doubtful. So what we are trying to do now is trying to not lose, not to gain, but we are trying to not lose. And when we do that, collectively we all start losing, because that's what economy is. It's just those transactions. More and more transactions increase the GDP. When the transactions come down, it brings down the GDP. So this is what is the worry. So first step is to let the country be together. All those divisive things, be it an RC kind of a thing, or even and there are many such things. Even the further and further, like they are finding out how to make new temples in Mathura or Agra. These kind of potentially creating division kind of things should stop at some point, and that responsibility should definitely lie with the government. Take the people along. Nobody has to worry about the citizenship or their way of eating or their way of culture or their way of religion. No, that's not our concern. Our concern is to make sure that we have a better livelihood, better education, better healthcare, and that is how we as a nation will progress, I suppose.
Thank you, sir. Trusting each other beyond our varied cultures and growing ahead to a better future. Now, as we go ahead, we again have your friends speaking. So they are all really happy to speak about you. So let's hear again and then carry on.
Hi Ganna. I remember those days in school when you used to fight for us. I mean, you always stood with us, sometimes mediated for us, sometimes pleaded for us, while many others looked at us as typical backbenchers. Now, after 20 years, we see you doing the same for our country. Talking about your qualities, without any doubt, you are exceptionally intelligent. But I always felt the quality that made you Kannan Gopinathan is that you are extremely different from others. We all who know you from childhood strongly believes that quitting civil service is just a takeoff for you to fly high beyond the limit.
You are actually making me remember a lot of stories. Anyway, they didn't tell me that in fact we are in the WhatsApp group. They didn't tell me that such a thing is happening. Okay.
There's so much that we have to learn from you, sir, because you are a real inspiration, teaching us that fighting for the right is always good. You have traveled to the width and breadth of India. Can you tell something about unity in diversity in Indian context?
Yes, like you might know, I was in Kerala till around 2003. That's till I was 17. And then I went to Jharkhand, the Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra, for my engineering. For 4 years I was there. And even at that point of time, I used to travel there was a RSS Shakha in that college. So I used to go to those Shakhas, and then from there we used to travel to various tribal villages, and just for exposure and try to understand. Normally, when you're going to a college, you don't end up doing all those things, but you used to go for cycle rallies and all those things, trying to see what the culture is, what is it that what is it lacking, or what is it different from us. Then I was in Noida, where I was working in Motorola or Freescale Semiconductors for around 4 years. At that point of time, we could work with some slum, especially the people who came from Bihar. They were living in a slum kind of a situation there. And you could see a lot of kids going and collecting waste and trying to segregate those waste. And whereas within 20 meters, there was a government school, and the government school was not ready to accept them because they were not from that same place. So that was something which was very shocking to me, because it's just 20 meters, and these kids, very young kids, they will not go to the school. Instead, they would go and collect waste outside. Then we found quite a few of us. We tried to get them into the school, and then we couldn't. They went to the school, but second or third day they would come out because they were made to sweep or wash dishes, and almost all the jobs of the schools were given to these small kids. They would have been like 7, 8 or something like that. And then a few of the people were like interested, and then we started teaching these kids on a daily basis, while along with our private sector, and in that slum. So now it has become I left. I was there only for a year and a half. But then it became a lot of volunteers came, and now around 400, 500 kids are studying there in that slum in a school of their own. It is going on. Then it was in one of those days I met my wife, who is from Haryana. So she is from Haryana, and so that's how we became to Haryana. Then I was posted in Delhi for some time, for a year, and then from there to Mizoram, which is in the northeast. I was there for 3 years, for around 1 year, close to a Myanmar border subdivision, and then as a district collector of their capital district, the capital Aizawl. And from there to Dadra Nagar Haveli, which is quite the opposite, in the western sea side, to the Gujarat and Maharashtra border, which was again very completely different culture. But all this while, one thing was remain constant is that you are able to connect to people, provided you want to connect to them. It's just a matter of willingness. If you are willing to connect to the people, they are more than happy to welcome you as their own. It's not the case that it is your prejudice that actually may creates that block, or between, or kind of a barrier between you and the community, the places where you're going. A lot of people used to find Mizoram as a very different state, because the language is different, the culture is different, everything is. In fact, for me, Mizoram has been a wonderful experience. I think for 3 years I was there, and just last week, yeah, there was an article written by a senior bureaucrat there, and I have left Mizoram for like 4 years now, and they have written about something which I had done some 6 years back, and after leaving that, and it is not about the position as a collector or something. It is just that there was a connect. There was, people could come, and I could also go. They could rightfully ask things from me, and I could also rightfully ask in return. Whereas there used to be a gulf of a difference or suspicion between people because of the cultural differences. That is the first thing. A person generally would have this. You try to judge others on the basis of your own culture, right? And we have it from very young age. Maybe you many culturally inappropriate references I like to give. Maybe I'll not do it on record, but we have this kind of thing. People who come from the other states, so they don't take bath, or when these are like this, then they don't take. So you are trying to constantly judge everybody else you meet based on your own cultural. You eat meat, but let's say somebody eats insects or dogs, then you would say, no, how can they eat insect? How can that is really bad. But you can eat maybe a frog. Frog is not an issue, but snake is an issue. Snake is, how can somebody eat snake? Then you can eat a frog. Frog is very tasty, but snake is not. How can somebody eat snake? So this kind of an attitude which comes, whatever you do is the cultural standard. Those who don't eat meat, they don't know the tastes of life. They know delicacies of life. They are not even exposed. Those who eat meat other than what you eat, oh, they are barbarians. They are completely clueless people. So this kind of everything is, you are the standard. Your culture is the standard. Your worldview is the only worldview to go by. And that creates a prejudice with which when we travel to each place, you are not judging the culture, you're judging every single person. And after that, you try to fit their actions into what you see as them. You already have a definition for them. They are like this. And whatever their actions are, individual actions, you try to fit those actions into that cultural framework you already created for them, which is different and which is inferior to you, as per you. And you are trying to create. And what you're doing, we're all individuals and we all have very different views. We have good, we have bad, we have all sort of things. But we shouldn't be reduced to what is an identity, or what is perceived to be an identity. So I think that that is something I observed. Once you cross that barrier, that they might also be looking at me the exact same way. And if we are able to break those barriers, then it is possible to have a connect beyond those. And then there is a lot to learn, a tremendous amount of things to learn from each other. One thing like from Mizoram I learned is that, a privacy, for us, a privacy is a big concern in the sense that we need to have a, if let's say a bathroom is closed, then you need to have a lock also there inside. You need to have, all sort of things. So because you're worried somebody is going to peep, right? Somebody is going to try to see what is going inside. Whereas I went to Mizoram and you could find quite an open kind of a bathroom structure, because the privacy is so taken for granted, because they know nobody would look. So just imagine that the concept, when you are assured that nobody is going to do that, then you don't have to take extra precautions to, see that when somebody, same thing, trust is underlying, not just privacy. Privacy is one example. The trust was the other thing, they could keep their lot of shops which are there of vegetables. Those vegetable owners would keep it along the roadside, and they will just carve something on that, 30, 20, whatever, and they'll keep a Pepsi bottle, half cut Pepsi bottle or something there, and then they'll go back to their farm. And people who want to purchase, they'll take the stuff from there, put the money in that bottle, and then they'll go. And it's a very simple thing, because there is trust. And a lot of our solutions that we provide as technological solutions are actually as a solutions to the trust issues. And it's not just trust issues, but lack of trust. And lack of trust because we don't respect somebody else's trust. We don't respect somebody else's privacy. So that is a big learning, a huge learning that was from. In our doctors' clinics, you'll have a doctor, you'll have a compounder, you'll have some tune, because to take name, I used to go for a walk in the early morning there, and you used to find people who would come early in the morning, and there will be a paper outside a doctor's clinic, just hung outside, one paper. And they would just come, whoever comes first will write one first name, second, third, and then they will go. And then when the doctor comes, he'll just take when he goes in, he'll take that clip inside and go on, he'll start reading from that. You don't need three people to make sure that there is a queue is to be maintained. So there is tremendous amount of things to learn from each other, from this various parts of our country. Tremendous amount of things to learn. Be it Mizoram, be it Jharkhand, be it Haryana, be it Noida, and there are various aspects of life which we think like. I used to feel like the women empowerment in Kerala or something was, like the peak. But then I went to some of the cities and I realized, on an average, yes. On an average life, if you say the women empowerment in Kerala would be okay. But beyond that, there are expectations which is highly hypocritical of our society also. In the sense, you would want a woman to be working, educated, but also cooking and cleaning. It's not, means everything has to come together. It cannot be just, so the equal thing is not there. It is empowered, but that empowering is actually given by somebody else. So that power relationship also is existing in a way. But when you go to a big city and stay there, and then you realize it's not the case. That is not at all the case. And empowerment means equal. If equal means if you make a tea, the other person also has to be expected to make tea. That is what it is being of equal. And that is also, it takes time to learn all this. But if you are open enough to learn from various cultures, to learn from various people, I think our country has a lot to offer, a tremendous amount of thing to offer. And if you are good, people ask often this question: how do we integrate people? Especially in a country as vast as India, the best way to integrate people is as an individual. If you're good, just be a good individual. You will actually take 10 more people along with you. Just being a good individual. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go push development or road or railway and all those things. No, that will come. That is natural. Those infrastructure development is secondary. But be good to people who are different from you. Be understanding of the people who are different from you. Be not prejudicial to people who are different from you. That if you start with that, I think there is tremendous amount of opportunities and promise that our country offers.
Yes, we live in a society where there's difference in opinions and thoughts, and at the same time, being good is gonna create a change. As we go ahead, we have another friend of yours ready to share some thoughts about you. So we'll hear that and go to the next question.
I'm Jency Andrews, classmate of Kannan. So talking about Kannan, as a student, he was brilliant. He had extraordinary level of grasping power. He wouldn't spend much time in his studies, and he was very energetic and active. Then as a friend, he was always fun-making and jovial. He easily gets along with people and so had a very large friend circle. But then, considering him as an individual, he stood for justice all the time. He had genuine concern for his fellow beings. He was always bold and confident in exposing whatever he felt right. Then he had also great leadership qualities from his school days itself. But all over this, he is always so humble, and that is why we IHRD friends, we really like him and we are proud of him and respect him for whatever he has achieved till now. And I personally, Kannan, wish you and your family all the very best.
Oh, that's so nice. See, I had no idea, and I would like to tell that I haven't bribed them or I haven't done anything to them to say these things. And I don't think they would honestly tell me all these things to my face. So, but it's nice.
But this is from their heart. They've really known you, and that is what they have expressed.
Yeah. You should send me all these clips as WhatsApp so that I'll tell them.
Okay.
Next time we have a fight on the WhatsApp group, I'll remind them. This is what you. Yeah, no, but very, very nice to hear all this. And nice to see them also.
Indeed, that when we hear about you, it's like they're really being open from their heart, from what they have known about you. So it is like we are knowing you more.
Especially, I think IHRD days from 8th to 12th had a lot, a lot on my own character, my own beliefs, my own confidence. A lot of things I think came from those days, and we were very bold and a lot of things. I remember a lot of things. We had one teacher, if I'm not wrong, one time. Okay, maybe I'm taking a minute or so here.
Okay.
Once some other kids had come from some other place, and we were standing in a bus stop to beat one of our friends in our classroom, and in the class, and we were quite shocked. They came, they beat him up or something, and then he got injured in his leg. And by the time we were able to react, they left. And we came back to the school, and the teacher was standing there, and this fellow was quite in a distress. And we were telling teacher that, teacher, this happened. Then she responded saying, she was asking, what are you guys doing? You are standing there and you are letting your friend get beaten up. What kind of friends are you? We thought we might get scolded for getting into a fight, but she scolded us for something else. She said, if you won't stand up for your friends, then who will you stand up for? I think a lot of small these things that we don't realize that come from various aspects of our life, and especially IHRD. We were now I think a lot of our parents used to be really worried about us. We were really a bunch of not very good students that way. Go school and come back kind of a thing. We used to get in a lot of fights and all those things. But we learned a lot of things from there. We really learned, all of us.
To recall another memory of your school days, there is again a friend waiting over there to speak.
Hi, my name is Sriraj and I have been friends with Kannan for over 20 years now. We were batchmates at Puthupalli IHRD from 1998 to 2003. We have always known that there is something special about him and he's gonna go do great things. but we didn't quite see him becoming this national sensation that he is now. A true defender of Indian democracy, a voice for the voiceless, truly a national hero. When he resigned last year upon the Kashmir issue, a lot of people criticized him. A lot of people questioned his motive. Even at the face of all those criticisms, he held his stand quite persistently. And we wondered where this persistence comes from. I think the persistence comes from his love for the nation. He is a true believer in India. To that extent, he reminds me of some of our national heroes, like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel or Ambedkar. He has that sense, he has that spirit in him. And to be honest, he always had that. We forgot to notice. When he was in our history class asking the most intelligent questions to the teacher, he had that spark. I'm sure that he's going to do great things, amazing things for the nation. I wish him good luck. Thank you.
Unbelievable things are being said by my friends. That's fine, but it's very nice. I thought it's, when it's going to be a very serious interview, but it's making mostly me remember my old days.
Sometimes memories are rejuvenating. They're really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Now, most of us don't like. Many times we realize what we are is because what we are. It's not mostly because of what we are. It is because what we were taught, or what we have experienced, or what we have gone through. So that all has a forbearing on what you are today. So not that. I'm right now. I'm just a jobless person sitting here and doing nothing. But at least it's good to hear that what you did had some value, at least to some people. At times, it is easy to doubt yourself that whether the things that you stood for, of course, it meant a lot to you. That is why you did. But was it worth it? And even when one person at times, and it's not that the doubt is there always. Once in a while it comes. It does come because things have changed. Personally, a lot of things have changed, and your life has changed. So yeah, then it's good to hear that no, it meant, and even if it means to one person that yes, it made or it inspired somebody else to take a stand. I think it's always worth it. It's always worth it. Yeah.
Often we see people engaged in psychological warfare. Don't you think these are diverting the attention of people into unnecessary topics?
Right now, many of us think that a lot of these issues are diversions. Why is there a diversion? Why is there that, let's say, a Sushant Rajput issue or a Bollywood issue or something like that which comes along, wherein issues that concerning, that is, let's say, an economy or your joblessness or migrant crisis or China sitting in our territory, COVID situation, none of those gets the attention. Why? Because first thing is, many of us don't know how to tell important stories in an interesting way. Both are important in the sense it has to be important issue. It also has to be told in an interesting way, and then only you will get people to listen. It is really demanding too much to ask people to be bothered about GDP all the time, or unemployment all the time, or that is also in a way the responsibility of the media. I'm not saying it's a failure or it is. Why is it that a certain kind of a sensational thing has more TRP? Because there is a value of gossip. People generally, not just India, there is no need to see them as lesser people or anything. In fact, if you read *Sapiens*, that book by Yuval Noah Harari, then I think you'll find that in one paragraph he proposes that maybe language developed as our need to tell stories, or maybe our need to tell gossip about others. If I need to communicate to you directly, I can use my hand, you can use your hand, and we can communicate. I need something, you need something, okay, fine. But if I have to tell a story about somebody else. And then I cannot use my hand to tell those stories. It becomes complicated. So you need sounds, you need words, you need a more and more complicated expressions. And he puts forward something saying that, that may be the reason why language developed. If to tell stories is what language is developed, then we need to learn to tell interesting stories about important issues. That is how we ensure that it shouldn't be, the things are not diverted by the more interesting but less important issues. So how do we do that? How do we keep statistical data relevant and anecdotal at the same time? How do we make people relate? Let's say I can say there is a highest unemployment in 47 years, but when you say that, it looks like an abstract thing. If there is some data in a book of a government office, but that's not the case. Highest unemployment in 47 years means the person who is sitting next to you right now, the urban unemployment is 10% close to. That means every 1 in 10 person is looking for a job and he's not getting in a city. So that could be 10 people in a bus, then that could be one person there. And it could be your uncle's son or a daughter, or somebody who's known to you who's looking for a job. For him, it's not an abstract concept. For him, it's a lived reality. It's his experience, everyday experience that he's going through. Now, how do we tell the story of statistics through anecdotes? That is something, as media also, those who are at least concerned about the important issues should learn. How do we tell them? How do we make interesting stories out of important issues? I think that is something I am also trying to grapple at. When I try to share my views also, that's something I try to see. How do we do that? How do we keep people engaged on the important issues? Second is that there was a topic that you said about youth and unemployment was one of the topic that I would like to brush upon that slightly. Not brush upon. I'd like to put my views on that. There is that earlier, when the economy is better, you would find job. You would study. You would work hard and you will find a job, and then you will not feel that it is out because of the government's largesse that you got the job. No, you would feel that you are good enough, you've studied, you have worked hard, and that's why you got the job. So you don't feel obligatory to the government. But when you see a stark difference now, in the sense that now, since the economy is not doing good, people are feeling that they are not getting job, and that is because they are not good enough. And that is why you see highest suicide among the unemployed youth, as per the government's own data, because youngsters are feeling they are not good enough. That's why they are not getting a job. Or maybe I should have done a polytechnic instead of an ITI, or a mechanical instead of a civil, or a electrical instead of a computer, whatever be it. You are constantly questioning your own choices that you made in life. And you think that, okay, maybe because of my own wrong choices is why I'm not getting a job right now. And if that is going to be the future, there is no improvement that you see in the future, then you take a fatalistic attitude. And then, but what she's not realizing is that is the situation with a large section of the population, because there are no jobs. Only if there are jobs in the market, only you will get it, irrespective of how much ever hard you work. Otherwise, the number of people who get, you can say one person would get it, but the majority are not getting the job. So when it comes to employment, normal employment, I'm saying, a person finds his success as his own and his failure as his own, without realizing the government and the enabling environment that it creates, right? The enabling environment that creates the opportunity for those employment. Whereas, if you look at in the same family, you're not getting a job, but your house got a cylinder, gas cylinder, okay? Or your house got a toilet constructed free of cost. How do you see it? Me not getting a job is my own failure, but I am getting a cylinder, which is the government success, right? Because I got a cylinder, which is the government has given you. I am not getting a job because I'm not good enough, right? So my failures are mine. Whatever I get is government success. So this has become the kind of every citizen, in effect, has been reduced to a subject, a beneficiary. He or him, she is not somebody on his own. He or she is ultimately a beneficiary of the government scheme. And as long as the person is made to feel that he or she is a beneficiary of government scheme, they would feel obligated to the government. And when they feel obligated to the government, they will not question the government. It's like, let's say you have an uncle who comes and gives to you 1,000 rupees once in a month, or maybe once in a while. Even if you see him doing something wrong, you will think twice before questioning, because he's coming and giving you 1,000 rupees in a month, and at least some pocket money. Like, oh, okay, fine, at least he's giving me $1,000, right? So you will not question that person who is sort of giving you pocket money. And that is what the government is trying to do more and more, trying to give a small pocket money, pocket change for a lot of people, more and more people, and at the same time rob them of the opportunities for their own advancement, an individual's own advancement by his capacity, because the larger opportunities are shrinking, whereas individual benefits are from the government is actually getting more and more targeted and more delivery oriented. And there the government is doing well also. You have to be clear on this, that on this individual benefit oriented schemes, government is doing extremely well, because they're targeting every single person. And then when the election comes, it is being checked and seen, okay, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this, now why don't you, that reduces the space for a more genuine discussion. It's not that it is bad, but if it was accompanied with a larger economic growth, it was accompanied with a larger employment growth, then you would have found a much more confident people questioning the government. But now it will happen, but it will happen I'm worried, because when it will happen out of a outrage, it will happen out of anger, not because it has to be a normal feature of democracy, but because it has come, water has reached this level, now that, okay, now enough is enough kind of a questioning will happen. And that is again some dangerous proposition for the country.
Indeed, there's so much that we have to ponder upon, and our audience today will have so many thoughts in their minds running, and they will take a chance to think before they act anytime next. And as we conclude, we have 2 more videos to see.
Oh my God.
We'll watch them one by one.
Okay.
Kannan Gopinathan is my classmate when I was a student of Technical Higher Secondary School, Pudupalli. I remember he was very firm in his opinion and was very articulative about it, and he had opinion on most of the social and political happenings and events around us. I remember he was very proud to say that he is following the ethical standards set by his father, and that greatly influenced him. I am very happy to say that he is still following that high ethical standards in his personal and official life.
Good. Nice to hear all those.
Before we go to the next video, you told about unemployment for the youth, what is happening today. So would you give a small piece of advice to the youth today?
Yeah, I think not to be, first thing is that you have to be clear. The first part of my answer was that we are together, irrespective of all the differences that we may see. We have to be underlying this belief has to be there. We are together as Indians. We are together. We have a shared future. So disagree honestly, disagree vehemently on all the views that you have, which is important, because unless there is disagreement, there won't be any progress. Uniform kind of a thought process will actually take us down the path. So disagree, but don't hate. Let's not hate each other. Let's be very clear on this, that with all these differences also, we have to stay together and we have to progress together. Second thing is that the country is not decided by just one generation. I particularly feel we had a generation which was overly mute. They were only worried to a certain extent of their own well-being, in the sense personal well-being. You just go study, don't think and discuss on all these issues. Don't get worried about political issues. Don't get worried about social issues. Just go study, come back, find a job, marry, have a kid. Have more kids or not, but then just that's it. That should be your life. There shouldn't be anything more to your life than this. And that is because that there was a lot of insecurities which were there, and so stability was the only thing that was expected from youth to be settled. Have you not settled yet? That is the biggest question that used to come to you. But I think we have passed that insecurity of the youth stage. We need to be a little more clear, because if we need to advance, if you're settling too soon, we will not be able to advance. So we need to be little more involved in almost all the affairs of our country, be it political, be it social, we need to voice our opinion. If we have a disagreement, we cannot keep quiet. We cannot be silent. I think those are the things. Two things. We are in this together, but we'll disagree. And if we disagree, we have to express our views. And when we express our views, again, we should realize we are in this together. So if you are able to do this, I think we as a country would go much, much further away, because our talent pool, our strength, our people are tremendously intelligent lot. I think the more and more individuals you meet, you more and more inspired you get, especially when you go to rural areas. The kind of enterprising spirit that they have, it's amazing. And you get more and more inspired. I was very disappointed when I resigned. My feeling was of utter disappointment with the lack of voice in the country, that nobody is even ready to tell. Many people are saying that this is wrong, this is not correct, but they are not ready to come out on the open and say it. That is highly disappointing. But then I decided to say something, and then I found out that a lot of people also maybe started saying things. Then I started traveling. I traveled to around 18, 19 states during this period, around 65 districts during this period. Lot of people, met with a lot of people, and then you realized people are tremendously talented. They have huge potential. And if we are able to get this hate out of our way, and silence also out of our way, it shouldn't be this. Both has to be out. We should be able to express without hating. We should be able to disagree with love. So I think if we are able to do that, we'll go a long way. We'll all go a long way.
Escaping fear and learning to disagree, and yes, going in the right way with the proper guidance. So we have got enough leaders to get inspired from. So now, as we conclude, we will watch another video.
I am Anjos. Myself and Kannan were schoolmates. The first and foremost thing which come into my mind when I think about Kannan is his extraordinary brilliance. And I strongly believe there is a strong reason for making him the IAS officer. And he was having out of the box thinking even from a school days itself. So my opinion about Kannan is he was very bold, he was very compassionate, and always stood for justice. And I strongly believe his resignation from the civil service will be a huge loss in the developmental process of the nation.
Okay, and yeah, but good to see her also. That is very well. I have to thank you for putting out those things together. I was not at all expecting. So I have to ask them, like, how come they didn't share? Through this, I would like to thank all of them also. I'm not sure whether my decisions, my future, or any of those things hold anything better, or whether it is, But one thing is clear, as I repeatedly keep reminding myself, that unless you take a decision based on your conscience, I think it will make your life tougher and tougher. And I don't think the biggest burden is the burden that you have on your conscience. So the financial, the other things, I don't think it's that much of a burden. But the burden that is on your conscience is something difficult to carry. So I hope to be honest to myself. I mean, that is the only way I can repay all the kind words that they have said. And they're normally not like this. They're being extra nice here. So, yeah, thank you.
Fully packed schedule of yours. You have taken time for us. So we owe a big thanks to you, sir. And friends are always friends. And they will have their way. And that is really wonderful to hear about you from them.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.